The coin was copper, tarnished, worth less than the bread it could buy. Mira watched her father accept it from the slaver's weathered palm, watched him pocket it without a flicker of shame, watched him turn his back and walk away without once looking at her. Her mother had already gone inside. Her brothers hadn't bothered to come out at all. 1 copper coin. That was her worth to the family she had served for 19 years. The family she had cooked for, cleaned for, sacrificed for. The family who had eaten while she starved, who had slept warm while she shivered on the kitchen floor. 1 copper coin. The slaver yanked the rope binding her wrists, and Mira stumbled forward. She didn't cry. She had stopped crying years ago when she'd realized tears only made things worse. Instead, she locked away the pain in that secret place inside her chest, where she kept everything that might destroy her. "Move it, girl." The slaver's breath was sour. Long walk to the auction block. The auction block, where she would be sold again, this time to someone with deeper pockets and darker intentions. She had heard stories about what happened to girls like her, plain, quiet, unremarkable girls with no family to protect them. She walked, 3 days of walking, sleeping in the dirt, eating scraps when the slaver remembered to throw them. By the time they reached the market town, Mira was hollow, empty, a shell going through motions that no longer mattered. The auction block was exactly as terrible as she'd imagined. Rows of people in chains, buyers circling like vultures, the auctioneer's voice calling out prices for human flesh as casually as if he were selling livestock. Mira was shoved into line with the other women, young, old, some crying, some staring blankly ahead, all of them reduced to merchandise. "Lot 17, the auctioneer bellowed when her turn came. "Female, 19 years, good health. Suitable for domestic work or," he leered, "other purposes." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Mira stared at a point above their heads and thought about nothing at all. Starting bid, 5 silver. 5 silver? Someone called. 6. 10 silver. She's pretty enough beneath the dirt. More laughter. Mira's stomach turned. 15 silver. 20. The bidding climbed. 25. 30. The men calling out numbers had hungry eyes and cruel mouths. Mira knew, with cold certainty, that whoever won her would make her wish she'd never been born. 50 silver? Came a new voice. The crowd went quiet. Mira's gaze dropped from the sky to find the source of that voice, and her breath stopped in her chest. He stood at the back of the crowd, and yet somehow he dominated it. Tall, impossibly tall, with shoulders that blocked out the sun. His hair was dark as midnight, his jaw sharp as a blade. His presence so overwhelming that the men around him had unconsciously stepped away, creating a circle of empty space. But it was his eyes that held her. Golden, burning, fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. 50 silver, the auctioneer stammered. Do I hear? 100 gold. Gasps erupted through the crowd. 100 gold was more than most families earned in a decade. It was enough to buy a house, a farm, a future. It was absurd. 100 gold, the auctioneer repeated, his voice cracking. Surely that's... does anyone wish to counter? Silence. The other bidders had gone pale. Sold, then. To the... The auctioneer squinted at the stranger. To the gentleman in black. The stranger moved through the crowd, which parted before him like water before a ship. He climbed the steps to the auction block, and Mira realized he was even larger up close. He towered over her, a mountain of muscle and barely contained power. He reached for her chains. She flinched. Couldn't help it. Every instinct screamed that this man could break her in half without effort. He stopped. His hands dropped to his sides. "I'm not going to hurt you." His voice was deep but gentle, impossibly gentle for someone who looked like he'd been carved from stone. "I'm going to remove your chains. Is that all right?" Mira stared at him. In her entire life, no one had ever asked her permission for anything. She nodded, mute with shock. He reached again, slowly this time, and unlocked the shackles around her wrists. They fell to the wooden platform with a clatter that seemed too loud in the silence. "Can you walk?" Another nod. "Then come with me. Please." "Please?" He said please. To her. A slave he had just purchased for a fortune. Mira followed him down from the auction block, through the staring crowd, toward a carriage waiting at the edge of the market square. It was black and gleaming, pulled by 4 horses that were larger than any she'd ever seen. A servant opened the door. The stranger gestured for her to climb in first. She hesitated. "Where are you taking me?" "Home." He said it simply, like it was obvious. "You're coming home with me." "Why?" The question tore from her throat, ragged and desperate. "Why would you pay 100 gold for someone like me? I'm nobody. I'm nothing. My own family sold me for a single copper coin." Something flickered in those golden eyes, something that looked almost like pain. "Your family were fools," he said quietly. "Blind, stupid fools who couldn't recognize worth if it stood right in front of them. You don't know me. You don't know anything about me." "I know enough." He stepped closer, and despite her fear, Mira didn't retreat. "I know you've been broken by people who should have protected you. I know you've survived things that would have destroyed someone weaker. I know you looked at that crowd of vultures and didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't break." His voice dropped. "I know you're the strongest person on that platform, and nobody else could see it." Mira's eyes burned. She refused to let the tears fall. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing you're not willing to give." He offered his hand, not demanding, not grabbing, just offering. "Come with me. Let me show you what it feels like to be valued." She should refuse, should run, should do anything except trust this stranger with the golden eyes and the impossible promises. But she had nowhere to run, no one waiting for her, nothing left to lose. Mira took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm and careful, like she was something precious. "My name is Theron," he said as he helped her into the carriage. "King of the Northern Territories. And before you ask, no, I don't make a habit of buying women at auctions." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "You're the first. You'll be the last." "Why me?" He settled into the seat across from her, his golden eyes never leaving her face. "Because the moment I saw you, something in my soul recognized something in yours." He leaned forward slightly. "Because in 300 years of searching, I've never felt what I felt when I looked at you on that platform." Mira's heart pounded against her ribs. "What did you feel?" "Home." The word was soft, reverent. "I felt home." The carriage began to move, carrying her away from the auction block, away from the life that had valued her at 1 copper coin, towards something she didn't understand, toward someone she didn't dare trust, toward a future she couldn't begin to imagine. The journey took 3 days. 3 days of soft cushions and warm blankets, 3 days of meals served on silver platters, more food than Mira had eaten in a month. 3 days of Theron sitting across from her, answering every question she dared to ask, and never once demanding anything in return. She learned that he ruled a territory larger than the entire kingdom she'd grown up in, that his people were Lycans, shapeshifters who could take wolf form, who lived for centuries, who were stronger and faster than any human, that he had been searching for something his entire long life and had finally found it. Her. "I don't understand," she said on the second night, wrapped in a fur blanket while the carriage rolled through moonlit forests. "You're a king? You could have anyone. Princesses, noble women. Why would you want—" She gestured at herself. "This? This?" Theron's golden eyes glinted in the darkness. "You mean a woman who survived 19 years of neglect and abuse without losing her dignity? A woman who stood on an auction block surrounded by predators and refused to break? A woman whose soul called to mine across a crowded marketplace?" Mira looked away. "I'm nobody." "You keep saying that." He leaned forward, his presence filling the carriage. "Who told you that you were nobody?" "Everyone." The word came out bitter. "My father, my mother, my brothers, the villagers who watched them work me like a mule and never said a word. Everyone I've ever known." "Then everyone you've ever known was wrong." "How can you say that? You've known me for 2 days." "I've known you for 300 years?" His voice was soft, but certain. "I just didn't know your face until now." Mira didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing, and eventually she fell asleep to the rhythm of the carriage wheels. When she woke, they had arrived. The castle rose from the mountains like something out of a fever dream, massive stone walls, towers that scraped the clouds, banners snapping in the wind, bearing a wolf's head sigil in silver and black. "Welcome home," Theron said. Home. He kept using that word, like it meant something, like she had any idea what it felt like. The next weeks were a blur of overwhelming newness. She was given chambers larger than her family's entire house. A bed with silk sheets and feather pillows. A wardrobe full of dresses in fabrics she couldn't name. Servants who called her "my lady" and asked what she needed instead of ordering her around. It felt wrong, like wearing someone else's skin. "You don't have to be afraid," Theron told her one evening. They were walking through the castle gardens, the setting sun painting everything in gold and amber. "No one here will hurt you." "I'm not afraid of being hurt." Mira stopped beside a fountain, watching the water catch the light. "I'm afraid of getting used to this, of believing it's real." She turned to face him. "What happens when you realize you made a mistake? When you see that I'm not whatever you think I am?" "What do I think you are?" "Special, valuable, worth something." She laughed, and it sounded hollow. "My own mother watched my father sell me and didn't say a word. If the woman who gave birth to me couldn't find anything worth keeping, why would you?" Theron was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, something that glinted dully in the fading light. A copper coin. Mira's breath caught. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. "It's—" Her voice cracked. "It's a copper coin. It's the coin your father accepted for you. I took it from the slaver before I had him arrested." Theron turned it over in his fingers. "1 copper. Tarnished. Worthless. This is what your family thought you were worth." Mira couldn't speak, could barely breathe. "I'm going to keep this." Theron closed his fist around it. "Not because it means anything, but because one day, when you're ready, I want to show you what I would have paid for you. You paid 100 gold. That was for the auctioneer. His eyes met hers, burning with intensity. For you, I would pay a kingdom. 10 kingdoms. Every treasure I've accumulated in 3 centuries of living. He stepped closer, and Mira's heart hammered against her ribs. You asked what happens when I realize I made a mistake. The answer is nothing. Because I didn't make a mistake. I found you. Theron, your family was blind. The world that raised you was cruel. But none of that is your fault, and none of it defines your worth. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face in his palm. You are not what they told you. You are not 1 copper coin. You are rare and precious and mine, if you'll have me. Mira's eyes burned with tears she'd forbidden herself from shedding for years. I don't know how to be precious, she whispered. I only know how to survive. Then let me teach you. His thumb brushed her cheekbone, catching a tear that had escaped despite her best efforts. Let me show you what it feels like to be cherished. No expectations, no demands, just let me care for you. That's all I ask. Why? Why do you care so much? Because you're my mate. He said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. The other half of my soul. The person I've been searching for since before your great-great-grandparents were born. Caring for you isn't a choice. It's as natural as breathing. Mira stood in the golden light of the setting sun, a king's hand gentle on her face, and felt something crack open inside her chest. Not breaking, not shattering, opening. Like a door that had been locked for 19 years finally swinging free. I don't know if I can be what you need, she said. You already are. Theron smiled, and it transformed his fierce features into something breathtaking. You've been what I needed since the moment you were born. I was just waiting for the world to bring you to me. For the first time in her memory, Mira let herself lean into someone else's touch. And for the first time in her life, it didn't hurt. She didn't pull away, didn't flinch, just stood there, breathing in the scent of pine and something wilder underneath, letting herself be held by someone who asked nothing in return. I have something for you, Theron said after a long moment. A gift, if you'll accept it. You've already given me too much. I've given you things. He released her face, but took her hand, leading her toward a small building at the edge of the garden she hadn't noticed before. This is different. The building was a greenhouse, warm and humid inside, filled with plants in various stages of growth. Herbs, Mira realized. Medicinal herbs. The same ones she'd learned to identify as a child, before her family had made it clear that her only value was in the labor she could provide. The palace healer mentioned that herb lore was a rare skill in these parts, Theron said, watching her face. I thought perhaps you might like a space of your own, somewhere to grow things, to learn, to be useful in a way that brings you joy rather than exhaustion. Mira walked through the rows of plants, her fingers brushing leaves she recognized, and some she didn't. Lavender for calm, willow bark for pain, chamomile for sleep. How did you know? Her voice was barely a whisper. That I knew herbs? I didn't. I hoped. He stood in the doorway, a massive silhouette against the fading light. The healer needs an apprentice. The position is yours if you want it, but only if you want it. This isn't an obligation, Mira. It's an option, a choice, things she had never been given. She turned to face him, something warm and terrifying blooming in her chest. I want it, she said. I want to learn. I want to be useful. I want. She stopped, overwhelmed. What do you want? I want to believe this is real. Theron crossed the greenhouse in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. Not demanding, not possessive, just holding her, his chin resting on top of her head, his heartbeat steady against her ear. It's real, he murmured. I promise you, Mira, this is real, and it's not going anywhere. She let herself be held, and for the first time in 19 years, she let herself hope. A month passed. Mira learned the names of herbs she'd never seen before. She mixed poultices and tinctures under the palace healer's watchful eye. She discovered she had a gift, not just for remembering which plants did what, but for understanding how they worked together. The healer called her a natural, said she'd never seen anyone learn so quickly. For the first time in her life, Mira felt proud of something she'd done. She also learned to stop flinching when people spoke to her, learned to eat full meals without guilt, learned to sleep through the night without waking in terror, waiting for someone to drag her from her bed and put her to work. And she learned Theron. He was patient in a way that seemed impossible for someone so powerful. He never pushed, never demanded. He simply showed up, at breakfast, at dinner, in the greenhouse where she spent her afternoons. He asked about her day, listened to her answers, remembered the small details she mentioned and acted on them without being asked. When she mentioned missing the sound of rain, he had a covered garden bench installed by her greenhouse so she could listen to storms. When she admitted she'd never learned to read, he spent an hour every evening teaching her letters, his big hands guiding hers across the page with infinite patience. When she woke screaming from nightmares about chains and copper coins, he held her until the shaking stopped and never once asked her to explain. He was unlike anything she'd ever known, and she was falling in love with him. The realization hit her one evening in the library. Theron was reading aloud to her, something he'd started doing when she mentioned that her eyes hurt after a long day of studying herbs. His voice rolled through the quiet room like distant thunder, and Mira found herself watching his face instead of listening to the words. The way his brow furrowed at tense passages, the slight smile when something amused him, the way he glanced at her periodically, checking to make sure she was still engaged. I love him. The thought should have terrified her. Love was a weapon, a weakness, a way for people to hurt you more effectively. But looking at Theron, she couldn't find the fear, only warmth, only wanting. You're staring, he said, without looking up from the book. I'm thinking. About what? You. Us. The impossible thing I'm feeling. About how strange this all is, she said instead. A month ago, I was standing on an auction block. Now I'm sitting in a library listening to a king read me stories. Theron set the book down. His golden eyes found hers, and she felt that gaze like a physical touch. Is it still strange? Or is it starting to feel like something else? Like what? Like home. The word hung in the air between them. Mira thought about her answer carefully. I don't know what home feels like, she admitted. I've never had one. Then let me show you. Theron rose from his chair and crossed to where she sat, curled in the window seat. He knelt before her, bringing his eyes level with hers. Mira, I've been patient. I've given you time. I'll give you more if you need it. But I need you to know. He took her hands in his, engulfing them completely. I love you. Her heart stopped. You don't have to say it back. You don't have to feel it. but I can't keep pretending that what I feel for you is simple or casual or anything less than consuming. His grip tightened slightly. I love you. I have loved you since the moment I saw you on that platform. I will love you until the sun burns out and the mountains crumble to dust. Theron, I know you're scared. I know trust doesn't come easily. I know every person who should have loved you failed you instead. His voice roughened. But I am not them. I will never be them. And if you give me the chance, I will spend the rest of my very long life proving that love doesn't have to hurt. Mira's vision blurred with tears. She had spent so many years building walls, so many years convincing herself that she didn't need anyone, didn't want anyone, was better off alone. But Theron had dismantled those walls brick by brick, with patience and kindness, and a love so fierce it left her breathless. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. I don't know how to be loved. Then learn with me. He lifted her hands to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. Fall with me. Choose me. Not because you have to, not because you have nowhere else to go, but because you want to. I do want to. The words escaped before she could stop them. I want you. I want this. I'm just so scared that I'll wake up and it will all be gone. Then I'll spend every morning proving it's real. He reached up to cup her face, his touch achingly gentle. Mira, my mate, my heart. Will you let me love you? She kissed him. It wasn't elegant or practiced. She'd never kissed anyone before. But Theron didn't seem to mind. He made a sound low in his throat and kissed her back, soft and slow, like they had all the time in the world. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Mira laughed. I love you, she said. I didn't know I could. I didn't know I was capable of it. But I do. I love you, Theron. His smile was like watching the sun rise. Say it again. I love you. Again. I love you. I love you. He kissed the words from her mouth, and Mira melted into him, into this feeling, into the impossible truth that she had found something worth keeping, and for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of losing it. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other, the fire crackling softly in the hearth. Mira's head rested against Theron's chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. His fingers traced lazy patterns on her back, soothing and possessive all at once. There's something I need to tell you, he murmured against her hair. That sounds ominous. It's not. Or rather, it doesn't have to be. He shifted slightly, tilting her chin up so he could meet her eyes. The mate bond. Between Lycans, it's more than just a feeling. It's a connection. A merging of souls that makes two people one. Mira's breath caught. What does that mean? It means that if you accept me, truly accept me, we would be bound together, forever. My lifespan would become yours. My strength would protect you. My heart would beat in rhythm with yours until the end of time. Forever, she repeated. That's a long time. 300 years have taught me that forever is exactly long enough when you're with the right person. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I'm not asking you to decide now. I'm not asking you to decide at all. The bond requires consent from both parties. Without your willing acceptance, it cannot be completed. But you want it. More than I've ever wanted anything. His voice was raw with honesty. But not more than I want your happiness. If you decide that forever with me isn't what you want, I'll let you go. It will destroy me, but I'll do it. Because your freedom matters more than my desire. Mira thought about the family that had sold her, the slaver who had dragged her through the dirt, the auction block where men had bid on her like she was livestock. Then she thought about Theron, his patience, his kindness, the way he looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "I don't want to go," she said quietly. "I don't want freedom from you. I want freedom with you." Theron's eyes blazed gold. "Mira, I'm not saying yes to the bond. Not yet. I need time to understand what it means, what I'm agreeing to." She pressed her palm against his chest, feeling his heart pound beneath her touch. "But I'm saying yes to you. To us. To seeing where this goes. That's enough." He kissed her forehead, her nose, the corner of her mouth. "That's more than enough. I told you I'd wait, and I meant it. I'll wait as long as you need. What if I need 100 years? Then I'll wait 100 years. What if I need forever? Then forever is what you'll get." Mira laughed, the sound bright and free in the quiet library. She had spent her whole life believing she was worthless. 1 copper coin, nothing to anyone. And now a king was promising her eternity. "You're ridiculous," she told him. "Ridiculously in love with you." He grinned, and it made him look younger, less like a centuries-old monarch, and more like a man who had finally found what he was looking for. "I've been told it's a good look on me." "It is." She kissed him again, softer this time, savoring the taste of him, the feel of him, the impossible reality of being wanted. Whatever came next, she would face it with him. Together. 2 weeks of happiness. That's what she got before the past came crashing back. Mira was in the greenhouse, grinding dried lavender into powder, when the head of the guard appeared in the doorway. His face was grim. "The king requests your presence in the great hall, my lady. Immediately." Something cold slithered down her spine. "What's wrong?" "There are visitors from the south." The south, where her family lived, where the auction had been held, where she had been sold for 1 copper coin. Mira set down the mortar and pestle with trembling hands and followed the guard. The great hall was packed. Nobles, advisors, soldiers, all of them lining the walls, all of them watching the doors with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed hostility. And at the center of it all, standing before Theron's throne like they had every right to be there, were 3 people Mira had never expected to see again. Her father, her mother, and her eldest brother, Marcus. The ground tilted beneath her feet. "Ah, there she is!" Her father's voice was exactly as she remembered, thin, wheedling, fake. He spread his arms wide as if expecting an embrace. "My darling daughter, we've been so worried about you." Mira couldn't speak, couldn't move, could only stare at the people who had sold her like garbage and were now smiling as if nothing had happened. Theron rose from his throne. His face was carved from stone, but his eyes burned with barely contained fury. "You claimed you came to negotiate," he said, his voice dangerously soft. "Explain." "Of course, Your Majesty." Her father executed a clumsy bow. "There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Our daughter was taken from us against her will, sold by a cousin who had no right to make such a transaction." He shook his head sadly. "We've been searching for her ever since. When we heard she'd been brought here, we came immediately to reclaim her." Lies. Every word was lies. "Reclaim her," Theron repeated. "She's our daughter, our blood." Her mother stepped forward, her eyes wet with theatrical tears. "We just want her home, where she belongs." Mira found her voice. You sold me. The hall went silent. Sweetheart, her father began, you sold me for 1 copper coin. Her voice shook, but she forced the words out. Father took the money himself. Mother watched from the doorway. Marcus laughed. She turned to face them fully, 19 years of pain and betrayal rising in her throat. You didn't search for me. You didn't care. You're only here now because you found out who bought me. Her father's mask slipped, revealing the cold calculation beneath. Now, daughter, let's not be dramatic. She's not your daughter anymore. Theron descended from the throne, each step deliberate, predatory. She stopped being your daughter the moment you put a price on her head. With respect, Your Majesty, family matters are not subject to royal decree. Marcus stepped forward, puffing out his chest. Blood is blood. She belongs with us. She belongs wherever she chooses to be. Theron stopped between Mira and her family, a wall of muscle and barely leashed violence. And I suspect she doesn't choose you. The law is clear? Her father's voice turned hard, the pretense of affection abandoned. A daughter belongs to her father until she is married. Mira is unmarried, therefore she is ours. She was sold. The transaction was witnessed and recorded. By your own laws, she belongs to whoever purchased her. Then she belongs to the slaver, not to you. The slaver sold her to me. I have documentation. Theron smiled, and there was nothing warm in it. Which means, by your own logic, she is mine. Her father's face reddened. This is outrageous. You can't just... I can do whatever I want. I'm a king. Theron's voice dropped to a growl that vibrated through the hall. And you are 3 humans who sold their own flesh and blood for less than the price of a loaf of bread. You have no claim here, no power, no rights. We'll take this to the High Council, Marcus threatened. We'll expose you for the High Council has no jurisdiction over Lycan territories, and even if they did... Theron stepped closer to Marcus, towering over him. Do you really think anyone would side with parents who sold their daughter into slavery? Marcus went pale. We didn't. That's not... I have witnesses. I have the bill of sale. I have the copper coin your father accepted. Theron reached into his pocket and produced the tarnished coin, holding it up so the entire hall could see. 1 copper. That's what you thought she was worth. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Disgust. Outrage. Mira saw nobles she barely knew staring at her family with open contempt. You want to know what I think she's worth? Theron's voice rose, carrying to every corner of the hall. I would pay a kingdom for her. 10 kingdoms. Every treasure in my vault. Every acre of my land. Every drop of blood in my body. He turned to look at Mira, and his expression softened into something tender. She is priceless, and you were too blind and stupid to see it. Mira's eyes burned with tears. This isn't over, her father hissed. Yes, it is. Theron turned back to face them, all softness gone. You have 1 hour to leave my territory. If you're still here after that, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. If you ever come near Mira again, if you ever speak her name, write her letters, send messengers, I will consider it an act of war. He smiled, all teeth. And I promise you, you will not survive that war. Her father opened his mouth to argue. 59 minutes, Theron said. They ran. Mira watched her family flee the great hall, watched the doors slam shut behind them, and felt something she hadn't expected. Not pain, not grief, not longing for what could have been, relief. Then Theron was there, pulling her into his arms, and she buried her face in his chest and let 20 years of tears finally fall. "I'm sorry," he murmured against her hair. "I'm sorry they found you. I'm sorry you had to see them." "Don't be." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I needed this. I needed to face them, to say the truth out loud." She laughed wetly. "I needed to see them run." Theron cupped her face in his hands. "You were magnificent." "I was terrified." "Those aren't mutually exclusive." He kissed her forehead. "Are you all right?" Mira thought about the question, really thought about it. "I'm better than all right," she said slowly. "I'm free, really free. Not just physically, but—" She pressed her hand to her heart. "Here. They don't have power over me anymore. They're just three pathetic people who threw away something precious and are only now realizing what they lost." Theron's smile was fierce with pride. "I'm ready," she said. "Ready for what?" "The bond." She took his hands in hers. "I don't want to wait anymore. I don't want to give fear or the past any more control over my future. I want to be yours, Theron. Completely. Forever." His eyes blazed gold. "Mira, you don't have to. They just upset you." "They clarified things." She stepped closer, rising on her toes to press her forehead to his. "My family sold me for 1 copper coin. You offered me a kingdom. But more than that, you offered me choice, patience, love that doesn't demand anything in return." She smiled. "I choose you. Not because I'm running from them, because I'm running toward you." Theron kissed her like the world was ending and beginning all at once. "Tonight," he breathed against her lips. "We complete the bond tonight." "Tonight," she agreed. And for the first time since she'd been dragged from her home in chains, Mira looked toward the future without fear. The bonding ceremony took place beneath a canopy of stars. Theron's people gathered in the castle courtyard, hundreds of golden eyes reflecting the torchlight. They had come from across the territory, warriors and farmers, elders and children, all of them here to witness their king bind himself to his mate. Mira stood at the center of it all, dressed in a gown of deep blue silk that matched the night sky above. Her hair was loose, threaded with tiny white flowers that the palace women had spent hours weaving in. She had never felt more beautiful, more seen, more worthy. Theron walked toward her through the crowd, and her breath caught in her throat. He wore black, as always, but tonight his clothes were edged with silver that caught the starlight. His dark hair was swept back from his face, and his golden eyes never left hers. He looked like a king. He looked like a dream. He looked like home. When he reached her, he took both her hands in his. "Before the moon and stars," the elder began, her ancient voice carrying across the silent courtyard. "Before the pack and the wild, two souls stand ready to become one. Who speaks for the king?" "I speak for myself." Theron's voice rang clear. "I, Theron of the Northern Territories, choose this woman as my mate, my equal, my forever." "And who speaks for the woman?" Mira lifted her chin. "I speak for myself." "I, Mira." She paused. She had no family name, no lineage, nothing to offer except herself. "I, Mira, choose this man as my mate, my equal, my forever." The elder smiled. "Then let the bond be sealed." Theron produced a small silver blade. Mira had been prepared for this, had asked a dozen questions about the ceremony until she understood every step. Blood freely given, mingled beneath the moon. Souls joined in the old way, unbreakable until death. She held out her palm without hesitation. Theron made a shallow cut across her skin, then his own. When their hands clasped together, blood meeting blood, Mira felt it. The bond. It crashed through her like a wave, like lightning, like being torn apart and remade all at once. She felt Theron, not just his hand in hers, but him, his love, vast and fierce and unwavering, his fear that he wasn't good enough for her, his joy, so bright it burned, and beneath it all, a sense of rightness, of two puzzle pieces finally clicking into place. By blood and moonlight, the elder declared, by choice and covenant, these two are bound. What fate has joined, let no force tear asunder. The crowd erupted in howls, a joyous, primal sound that echoed off the mountains and shook the stars. Theron pulled Mira into his arms and kissed her deeply, thoroughly, in front of everyone. She laughed against his mouth, giddy with happiness, drunk on the feeling of the bond humming between them. "My queen," he murmured when they finally broke apart. "My mate. My heart." "My king," she whispered back. "My choice. My home." They turned to face the crowd together, hands still clasped, and Mira saw something that made her heart swell. Every Lycan in the courtyard had dropped to one knee. Warriors who could tear apart armies, elders who had lived for centuries, children with wide, wondering eyes, all of them bowing to her. The girl who had been sold for 1 copper coin. The woman who was now their queen. "Rise," Theron called out. "Tonight we celebrate. Tomorrow we begin a new era." The celebration lasted until dawn. There was feasting and dancing and more food than Mira had ever seen in her life. Lycans approached her throughout the night, some shy, some bold, offering congratulations and blessings and promises of loyalty. She was hugged by strangers, kissed on both cheeks by elders, lifted onto the shoulders of warriors who paraded her around the courtyard like a trophy. It was overwhelming. It was wonderful. It was family. When the sky began to lighten, Theron swept her away from the crowd and carried her to the royal chambers. Their chambers now. "How do you feel?" he asked, setting her gently on the bed. "Like I'm dreaming." She reached up to touch his face, marveling at the fact that she could, that she was allowed, that he was hers. "Like I'm going to wake up on that auction block, and none of this will be real." "It's real." He turned his head to kiss her palm. "I'm real. And I'm not going anywhere." "I know." She smiled, and it felt like the sun rising. "I can feel it. Through the bond. I can feel how much you love me." "Good. Because I plan to spend the next several centuries making sure you never doubt it." He kissed her then, slow and deep, and Mira let herself fall into the feeling of being cherished. 1 year later, Mira stood in her greenhouse, grinding herbs just as she had the day her family arrived. So much had changed since then. Her father had drunk himself into destitution within 6 months, squandering what little money he had on gambling and schemes that never worked. Her mother had left him, disappearing to live with distant relatives who wanted nothing to do with the family's disgrace. Marcus had tried to claim she had been enchanted by the Lycan king, but no one believed him. He was a laughingstock now, mocked in taverns across the southern provinces. Mira felt nothing for them, not anger, not satisfaction, just nothing. They had ceased to matter the moment she chose a different future. "There you are." She turned to find Theron in the doorway, a familiar smile on his face. He crossed to her and wrapped his arms around her from behind, chin resting on her shoulder. The healer says you've surpassed her, he murmured. She wants to retire and name you her successor. She's exaggerating. She's not. You have a gift, Mira. I knew it the moment I saw you. Mira leaned back into his warmth, feeling the bond hum contentedly between them. A year of love, a year of learning, a year of becoming someone she never imagined she could be. I was thinking, she said softly. Dangerous. She elbowed him gently. I was thinking about that copper coin, the one you kept. What about it? I want to do something with it. Melt it down, maybe. Make it into something new. She turned in his arms, looking up at him. I don't want it hanging over us. I don't want any piece of that life touching this one. Theron studied her face for a long moment. Then he smiled, that slow, warm smile that still made her heart skip. I have a better idea. A week later, they stood at the edge of the river that ran through Theron's territory. The copper coin sat in Mira's palm, tarnished and worthless, a relic of a life she had left behind. Ready? Theron asked. Mira looked at the coin. 1 copper. The price her family had put on her head. The sum total of her worth in their eyes. She threw it into the river. It disappeared beneath the water without a sound, swept away by the current, gone forever. How do you feel? Theron asked. Mira watched the water flow past, carrying her old life away. Then she turned to the man who had given her a new one. Free, she said. Finally, completely free. Theron pulled her into his arms and kissed her beneath the open sky. She had been sold for 1 copper coin, told she was worthless, discarded by the people who should have loved her most. And now she was a queen, a healer, a mate to a man who would pay kingdoms for her smile. The girl who was worth nothing had become the woman who was worth everything. And she would spend the rest of her very long life proving that worth was never about the price someone else put on you. It was about the value you found in yourself. If you loved Mira and Theron's story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new tale. Drop a comment below telling me your favorite part. I read every single one. Until next time, stay wild.